this enormity of Christ consciousness, this vast light coming from the central spiritual sun, comes in and is affecting every single one of us. It's highlighting, it's showing us all the places that we didn't dot the I's, didn't cross the T's, where the karma is. COVID was an absolute bringing everybody down and in to look at what's the karma. Where are you? Are you in a 2-bedroom flat with 4 kids in London and you're not allowed to go for a walk? Or have you got like a 5-bedroom house and none of your kids are living there and you live in Canada and you're literally locked down for 2 years? And so everybody had a different story in COVID, but everybody got to experience their karma ripened to say, okay, this is where you have to do your work. We all had a massive invitation to go up quietly to the bedroom and have our conversation with God.
Welcome to the I Don't Believe in Astrology podcast. The podcast is dedicated to conscious souls looking to change the world. Astrologer by day, climate activist by night. Here is your host, Debra Silverman.
I am only human. I have my faults and my shadows that are as bright as the light that shines within.
So welcome to the I Don't Believe in Astrology podcast, which is not going to be true for me and Rita. We are friends of many, many years. I want to say the 80s, the late...
No, 1992.
Oh, it was 1992.
I met you. Yes. Well, how many years is that? That's like 30 something years.
29 years. We're in our Saturn return. Oh my goodness. Yes. So when I met Rita, we were both very young. Rita came to me to study astrology. We both shed tears. I remember you crying in
I cried a lot.
In our first encounter because it was a memory. So you're being privy in this moment, this audience, to not just the conversation about what we always talk about, the series of questions, but Rita and I have a soul contract that we share the presence of the entrance of our spiritual awakenings. And because we were walking hand in hand for a function, a part of that, she knew my husband who passed away, and we had similar spiritual teachers, and we were living in London together, and it was an exceptionally significant time. And I think I knew that, Rita. It didn't go past me that there was a very significant occurrence at our meeting and the circle of friends we had.
Yes.
Set the seeds for the rest of our lives.
It did. Oh, I've gone very shivery right now. Have you?
And so we both have a sun in the 8th house. I'm going to share with you, the astrology students, who are few, but some, that Rita is a Capricorn with Gemini rising, which I just love, and her moon in Virgo. And she has an 8th house sun, which I'll show you in a moment. So do I. So I can promise you this conversation will go deep. The last encounter we hadn't spoken in, I don't know, how long was it between our last conversation? Maybe 20 years?
Yes. My internet's unstable. That's strange.
It's not true, because you're doing fine. Don't listen to them.
Oh, okay. Okay. Good.
It's so funny. Mercury is retrograde, so forgive us for these little moments, because we are both fascinated by the cosmic imprint. And as you can see behind Rita's head, she is a dharma and a Buddhist and a teacher of a very high level. And I'd like to speak to that. But to start with, let me just say, in those friendships where destiny finds you and glues together, or you have an encounter and you don't know quite when you're young the significance, but as years go on, you look back and go, oh, that was definitely organized by a higher power. That would be true of your first husband, your second husband, the dog, and the kids. All those people that entered into your karmic circle were written in the stars. And while the mind doesn't have any business trying to figure it out what the past lives were, although it's fascinating, the evidence speaks for itself. So fast forward 30 years later, here Rita and I are again to share with you our love affair. And what we share in common is a devotion to service at all costs. There's nothing else in our lives. There's simply nothing else than to be a frequency that invites people to remember this is a holy act, being alive.
Oh, that's the truth. Yes.
So Saturn and Aquarius, you had your Saturn return just recently.
Yes, I did.
Which was very interesting. We're going to speak to that. But let me begin by saying the intention, it's always important at the entrance of an encounter, once the awareness is on that this is a magical moment, to invoke and beckon those that we cannot see. And both of us, Rita and I, live with the presence of the enfoldment and the overshadowing and the constant presence and invitation that we become one with them, that we be a vessel and a vehicle to allow a healing current to expand our consciousness and hopefully be contagious, and have you expand your consciousness so that you can realize the sacred is always waiting. It's a thought away. Never, ever further than a thought away. And the moment you invoke and beckon and call forward, they come dun 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 dun. They're so here. They're like, are you kidding me? Rita and Debra had a date. You don't think they knew that? So take off your seatbelt, because we trust. There's nothing to protect. There's simply willingness to be open. Let the heart be yielded. Let the mind be willing to hear. And even to myself, I'm speaking to this. May I be a vessel today to facilitate a conversation that's just the one you were hoping we would have. Two little Geminis sitting in a tree. It's her soul and it's me. Okay, let me just start, because I know that there are people that are going to want to see the chart. Here we go. We have Sun in Capricorn at 22. There's a master number. I think that's very significant. I pay attention to this. And her Saturn is also at a master number at 11 degrees. And this person is such a, you'll see, single-eyed intention. And that's because Saturn on the midheaven, in our system, we pay attention to when planets are standing on the midheaven. So she has two planets there, particularly Saturn only 4 degrees off, that this lifetime she's come in with a very specific purpose. And we'll speak more about that. Gemini rising, it's been a wonderful relationship to her rising, which is a communicator, that she promised she would be a spokesperson. And you'll see that in a moment. And then this stellium here in the 4th, she has a few kids. And we're going to... 4 of them, but more importantly, it's a very unique indicator as a mother that she would bring in children who were very unusual and powerful, and definitely her challenge. So just to say it again, Sun in Capricorn, Moon in Virgo, conjunct Pluto and Uranus, and Gemini rising. But I'd love to start with Saturn on your midheaven. So tell us a little bit about purpose and how it's called your name, or when did you discern? What was the entrance where you realized, uh-oh, this life has got to have function and purpose? Where did that come into your awareness?
That was from very, very young, in terms of this deep, rich inner spiritual life. And then from a very young age, and as soon as I started to wake up, which I will go into more later, as soon as I did, just being basically smashed open, hollowed out, so that I could be a vessel to recapitulate previous lives' trainings, most importantly, and then to have the courage outside of the lineages that I've come through from previous lives, to then just be a free voice to teach the Dharma. That has taken me a lot of courage.
And that's Saturn Aquarius. So going from the future to the past, and then individuating it into your style without being self-conscious that you're diluting or breaking.
Exactly. And thankfully now I've had many Rinpoches and Tibetan Lamas really ask me to teach, and really strongly encouraged me. And, you know, it's helped me, because I was doing it anyway, but it was just more like, okay, I do have their blessing. It is okay. But to just be really direct about your question, I would say 20 years ago now, as I started to really step into the aspect of Dharma, but I was, to be really accurate, it was about 14 years ago. 14 years ago, that's when I realized, oh dear, my dharma, my service, which takes me around the world, holding retreats, teaching, is like a full-on holding for people in their transformational work, because I work very shamanically, is directly opposite everything, my family, because it means I have to leave my family. So off I go to travel, Saturn in the 9th, and I'm leaving my family. And that hurts me, because I see, because I'm a single parent, it meant that I'm leaving my children. They don't have another person that they're strongly looking to. That's been really a strong one.
That's that pull between the 4th and the 10th, really.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So tell us, you use plant medicine. Is that your primary ceremony, or do you use anything else, the Dharma practices?
Yeah, basically, I have worked very much over 20 years with plant medicines, but what I run retreats on is transformational, deep healing well-being, teaching Dharma, getting people to shamanically call back the places that they've abandoned themselves, to feel comfortable to embrace what they consider this dark shadow aspect that they don't love, and then to invoke the highest of all that they are, i.e. their spirit that's eternal, stainless, pure, never born, never died, to really open, to help them to prepare to hold the voltage of the cosmic fire that they are within eternity, to understand how to build the bridge to this place within themselves.
To speak to the part of them that has never died, that's been eternal, and let the fire run through their system.
Yes.
To allow the cosmic energies to be freed so that the human doesn't distract us.
Yes.
Oh, you're a poet. You're making me, there's something about your energy, Rita, and I just want to name this if I can, that the complete devotional commitment, the Capricorn excellence, the Saturn on the midheaven, the sun in Capricorn, that you could never, all I know is like watching you learn astrology way back then in the early 90s, and then taking on this practice, and then taking it to this high level where now people from around the world want you to sit in circle with them to the tune of hundreds of people. So I want you to know, you'll find out where you can find Rita, but she holds sacred space that allows this transformational energy to be, the human dimension to be flooded with, to be infused by the dharmic energy that's been waiting for us. Because let's speak about lineage, because it's something that I too have suffered from, in that, I don't follow a religion, and I'm an astrologer, self-trained. I don't have teachers, and yet I see the function of entering into the temples, the churches, going into that sacred space, learning the rituals, the traditions, to ultimately, Saturn and Aquarius, to free yourself to realize there's only one of us here.
Yes, that's true too. So, yeah, the lineage that I feel deeply embedded in understanding, which I present in definitely a new way, is the Vajrayana lineage, because it's so somatic. It's a tantric lineage.
Again?
Vajrayana.
Vajrayana.
Yeah. It's a really high tantric Tibetan lineage, where Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava, this lotus-born tantric teacher that gave these incredible teachings to the women in the 8th century, who actually fought through this Vajra. Okay, so this is the lineage I'm really connected to, because the Vajra is the thunderbolt. It's like a lightning bolt to cut through the illusion, the matrix. So it's a path of non-duality. It's a path of something called Mahamudra, which I'm so deeply grateful for. And everything that I attempt to share is to help people to cut through their own delusions, and then the delusion of our worlds, like there's those false matrix of doom and gloom, to find alignment in that, some people would call it fifth dimensional consciousness, or gamma brainwave states that connect us to the etheric field, where you've got this fifth kingdom of the souls already healed, already whole. And it's not in a battle, and it's not in a struggle. So we can't really access that until we actually really deeply experience the brow center open. And, you know, nobody can initiate anybody. This is a deep internal process of purification that can happen when we make the commitment to be still, to listen to the neurosis, the imprints that have been conditioned into us, that make us compare ourselves, that make us feel less, that have been sold to by marketing companies that think you need this to be happy or that to be happy, or you know, you're not quite enough, and when you get this, then it'll be better. All of us have got all these crazy imprints, and when we actually come onto the path and are ready to meet ourselves, first we have to meet these imprinted patterns of neurosis and come into an embrace of them, because you can't push them away. They just appear as another person.
One of my gifts as an astrologer is a psychotherapist. I make fun of people's little neuroses, and I tickle them, and I poke at them, and I call them out. And I want to say that's one of the gifts of the podcast. And my whole life's work is saying, listen, in order to come here, the very first card in the tarot deck is the Fool. Like the zero card is, you jumped in. Are you crazy? You're going to jump into the abyss, into a mirage that is so stubborn and so compelling, you can't remember who you are. You'll be absolutely lost until you wake up. And that's the Fool. It's a zero card. He comes in. And the very first thing he does is he lands on the magician, who has 4 elements sitting on a table. And he goes, listen, you better get to know. And your element, my sweet friend, is air. This is what I think of the Tibetan practices. They take the mind out of the mirage. They take it out of the matrix, and they still it.
Yeah.
And once still, there's an entire other matrix that you represent, which is a lineage who clean their minds. Isn't it interesting that Tibet is the tallest mountains in the world?
Yeah.
How high can we get? How clean can the air become?
But you know, Tibet was full of demons before Padmasambhava. That's a definite fact. And now the people from Tibet are all over the world. So he prophesied, the 8th century Padmasambhava said, when the iron bird flies in the sky, the Dharma will come to the west. So for me, in relationship to the Fool and what you've just said, I think of it more as the Bodhisattva vow. And I just want to look at it like this, Debra. Basically, you could say that in our highest point of consciousness, which is so magnificent and vast, eternal, stainless, we are living in a pure realm. That could be Shambhala, it could be a Tashita land, it could be wherever, however you want to see it. But you exist in a pure realm. You as Debra, or me as Rita, are here as an emanation. We're all here as emanations in a dream spell. So the way that the Vedas look at it, the Hindus, and actually many traditions, even the indigenous people of the forest, the Wiradaka people from Mexico, the Aboriginal, exactly, they consider this entire life as one night's dreaming of our soul's evolution. And I see it like that we are here within a dream, and the only way we're going to remember is to build the bridge. So this beautiful color chakra, massive mandala I've got behind me, is a massive transmission from Shambhala that comes through what's called this color chakra Janang lineage, that is here to really help humanity to remember that A, that there's a golden age, and B, that there are all these beings. In fact, in Shambhala, they say this 8-petaled lotus has 960 million cities of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that live in complete harmony with no need for money, because they are in their Buddhaic nature. They've purified the mind. They've attained their primordial wisdom that was already there. And they live within the Tao. And because they're in that harmonious, perfected state, their environment becomes harmonious. So that, for instance, they have no need for heating or air conditioning.
That's where I live.
Yeah. So that's so beautiful that you live in the pocket of that on this earth.
Lemuria, I just want to echo what you've said. There is a place beyond this place that exists in peace, that will include itself in the golden era, that our minds, without your assistance, Rita, and us having this conversation, we are left with doom and gloom. I was driving to the airport with my son yesterday, and I was so moved by him saying that his tears can't stop coming because he feels the North Koreans. He saw the Chinese just side with Russia. He's really worried about the state of affairs, and he feels like it's dishonest for us to go, pretend it's not happening. Well, of course.
Yes. I really get that. And in fact, I sobbed today. I just read about a child that was absolutely battered by her parents and her the mother's boyfriend, just to see and just let it come in. And I feel that one of our most important things that we can do as a human being is to embrace the suffering. And I really would like to talk about telepathy and where we're going as a race, actually, because in order to be telepathic, we have to allow ourselves to feel what's here. We can't shut it off. We can't continue to numb out. And that's, I really hear around your son, like, that is the most unhealthy thing we could do, is to numb out of what is here. We have to encompass. Otherwise, how does it get to change? We have to come home to our hearts.
Our mutual sun in the 8th house of Scorpio. I feel the same, that in this lifetime, I practice crying.
Yeah, it's healing. It's so good.
And so, but I want to, I want to return to, there is a place beyond this one that's been existent since the beginning of time, where levels and levels of peace exist.
Yes.
I see it in you, Rita. I see the emanation come off you. I see it behind your head, and I see the invitation as you sit in circle for all of us to kind of like make it contagious, like move into that field, like let us believe. I live in Hawaii as a remembrance. This place gives me this gift of like no air conditioning, no heater, no resistance. I never have to feel like I have to move quickly. I walk barefoot. I returned myself. I think of it as Lemuria that echoes these Shambhala, that there are places that have been in place, and that those of you in this world who are soulful, and you know who you are, here's the clue. You cry easily, you need alone time, you don't really like the game, you feel like you're a separate, you feel like you're scared, you can't really feel emotionally bonded because you just like animals, and you find yourself resistant to the humans because they hurt you. That's all a soul. And the soulful part chooses, as a fool would, to come into this experience. Why? To help us in this transition. And my whole life's work is, this is the time we were born for. Why do you think there's 8 billion people? Everyone you ever knew is going, I want to go down. I want to see how they do the transition.
Yes. And transition is coming. I feel like this time, in this moment, it's like we're in the birth canal being squeezed to this collective rebirth. And, there are many prophecies, and the prophecies talk about 2030 is when this golden age starts to really anchor in. But already from March 2021 is the beginning of what's called the light age. And as this light comes in, and I really have compassion for it because I'm in it for myself as much as everybody else is, as this enormity of Christ consciousness, this vast light coming from the central spiritual sun comes in and is affecting every single one of us. It's highlighting, it's showing us all the places that we didn't dot the I's, didn't cross the T's, where the karma is. COVID was an absolute bringing everybody down and in to look at what's the karma. Where are you? Are you in a 2-bedroom flat with 4 kids in London and you're not allowed to go for a walk? Or have you got like a 5-bedroom house and none of your kids are living there and you live in Canada and you're literally locked down for 2 years? And so everybody had a different story in COVID, but everybody got to experience their karma ripened to say, okay, this is where you have to do your work. We all had a massive invitation to go up quietly to the bedroom and have our conversation with God.
I sure did it. Everything you just said, I cried more in that window, having not had the kids, having had no one here, being in Hawaii, where everything was shut down for almost a year, not one hotel, not one restaurant. And I entered loneliness. And in the loneliness, I found myself.
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
And when I came out, and I think we're echoing. So I want to speak to 2030. The whole astrological movement, we're right now, what I thought you were going to say is we're in a peaking. We're at the best this planet will ever be at this minute, where there's a quality of freedom, there's a quality of abundance, there's a quality of mobility, there's a quality of going online and learning all this. However, this is peaking. We're going to go through this thin, as you described, birthing canal where things have to shut down and tighten. Thank you, COVID, as a preview, and let us start letting go of our outward attachments to comfort, because inside we know, that's why you're here and why I'm here to say nothing's wrong. Yes. I always say, if a woman was giving birth and you were in the room and you hadn't seen it and she was screaming and yelling, it's the 11th hour, it's now midnight, and she's like going, you're like ready to cut the thing off. You want to, there are those of us who are midwives, who are elders that say, shh, I trust her, I trust life, but most of all, I trust the invisible, God, energy, goddess, Christ, call it what you will. Absolutely trustworthy, said the astrologer.
Yeah. So it's interesting when so many people are frightened of this bit. So some of the really profound prophecies, they call this moment the pralaya, the time of churning. It's like everything's churning because we're moving from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. I look at it like this, from the Hraiz psychology, from the age of idealism and devotion, which was the activation and purification of the solar plex, that time where we gave our power away to an outer authority, that we're about to come into now, the activation and purification of the sacral chakra of all humanity and us individually, meaning that we have to come into right relationship with ourselves to really understand the sacredness of our sexual energy, so that we can come out of the chaos into cosmic divine order and ceremonial white magic. And what I see with that, what I really understand this to be, is that we're going to come to, well, where we're all going, what we're being prepared for is literally to be hollowed out so that we can be played by the Lord of the dance within the Tao, to be moved into the right activity within the divine plan, to be in this exquisite flow that's not of left brain mind that thinks it knows, because I was thinking about the glamour of the Aquarian age, is thinking it knows everything. It's consolidated it thinks it knows, and it goes into this superior left brain rather than the emptiness, which is what the telepathic field is. That in that emptiness, then we receive the transmission of a much deeper inner knowing that cannot even be spoken, because it's an unfolding in every single moment.
So for all of you who meditate and think nothing is happening, that's exactly right. And do not mistake that as being bored or being ineffective. I read Alice Bailey, and one of the first books I read was Telepathy. And she said it so clearly, until the stillness is reached, where the human delusion in the matrix is quieted, we can't find ourselves available to the higher realms because we're so noisy. It's like a noise factory that lives inside of the psyche. And then the impression from the above that wants to come forward through the act of medicine, through the act of stillness and meditation, through the act of making love, can't reach us because we're so noisy.
Full of ourselves. We're so full of ourselves.
The ego.
And the thing with this is, it's like, I look at it as, you know, telepathy is the absolute opposite of a lower psychic energy that really tunes in. When I was younger, I was very in that energy of psychism, where I could literally, because I'm very etherically sensitive, feel the energy in my brow center drop down into my solar plex and scan a person for information, and then say, oh, do you know what I know about you? And then feed it back to them. And I'd get paid for it. And then that's very different to in the inner stillness, where you're not even necessarily thinking about a person. You get this whole transmission of light that is the information that suddenly you find yourself saying something that's helping that person to connect to their own soul, because you feel their souls speaking.
So beautiful. That is what I define as a really good astrological reading, a being who is still enough as the astrologer to use the arsenal of information here, look up, and then let their soul speak to themselves in your presence. What a gift.
Yes, that's so
And in
beautiful.
doing so, here's the deal, you guys. Why do we do this? Because if I'm identified as a soul, not an ego, and I can distinguish that my cute little ego put the little outfit on with the little necklace and put the little makeup on and dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. So that's my little cute ego. She's cute. Rita's is pretty. And then there's the other side of the soul that has no interest in any of that, closes its eyes, empties, and is devoted and obedient to the forces that my mind can't comprehend, which is way beyond me. And that's where astrology enters the conversation, because astrology is the evidence that a higher intelligence is 100% trustworthy. I can look at Rita's chart and go, Gemini rising, watch how she speaks. Moon conjunct Uranus in the moon. She's going to have these psychic capacities and all this intense energy, and she's going to constantly be working with her intuition. And then she's got Sun in 22 degrees Capricorn in the 8th house going, can I be powerful enough to make a difference and heal this planet? She feels responsible.
Yeah, I feel responsible.
Saturn on the midheaven, that's what you live with all the time. And by the way, my son has Saturn and Aquarius on the midheaven, and he's Gemini rising. So the burden at the lowest level that you experience as a child or younger person, and I see it in him, is what can I do to support the beings that create him? He's so humbled. And each of us should say this. If this was taken, nothing else from this podcast, but the question is posed, how can I be humbled enough and innocent enough to be of service to that which created me? I say this all the time.
Love that. Yeah, me too. Yes.
And how
Yes.
we just think that our silly little egos with the suit, little outfit is the end or the beginning of the story. And how dare us think that something's wrong because mom's giving birth, we're in a canal, and it does feel overwhelmingly scary. For me, it does.
Well, I think for everybody, because we are in the grip of the great mystery and we do not know where we're going. Like, we are all being brought to our knees. We don't see, like, you know, Debra, something very interesting in this moment. If you think back 2000 years ago, when the seers would have been getting glimpses on a soul level of this epoch that we've just transversed, the whole of the age of Pisces, you know, for them to have even considered or believed that by the end of the age, people could go anywhere over the planet in a matter of a couple of days, and that you could sit with the Shivites or the Taoists or the Aboriginals or the Honey Queen in
Or
the
the
forest, ayahuasca, wherever, like you could just do anything in that same lifetime, any levels of practices, you know, from the Vajrayana to just the rosary, whatever it was that you really want to master, you can do several levels, and that we can talk to each other through the internet. Like, you know, obviously that's an Aquarian thing, but to have got to the point of this level, think of what it's going to be like that's so quantum for the next 2000 years. So I do get this really strong sense that as humanity, as individuals, as our soul comes in, and can I just say that what is the soul? The soul, your soul, which exists and lives in the plane of electric fire, your soul is the merit that you've accumulated through all your good deeds, words, and actions, through all of your lifetimes. Every lifetime, every nappy that you've changed, or garden that you dug, and tree that you planted, and right intentions, and the mantras that you chanted, the offerings that you made to the sacred waters of the planet, all of that level of merit, all the selfless service, that's stored in your meridian system, your nadi centers, your major and minor chakras. All of this then gets extracted as nectar. Every time you leave the body, your energy system dissolves upwards to go back to the light of your soul every lifetime, growing your unique geometry, your unique beauty. And our very work for every single lifetime is, can we have the courage as the ego to invoke that greater light to be the guide, rather than thinking that we know? And when that soul becomes integrated, that electric fire literally animates every physical atom in our body, opening us, activating us, inspiring us to come into our flowering. You know, that's a part of it, our evolution. And then the next level is to get to the point where our spirit, that isn't our soul, the spirit that's your monadic flame, the very highest aspect of deity that you are, to absolutely be bridged to the physical form. And that's magnificence itself.
That was absolute poetry. I want to bring us down to earth and say to you, will you explain to this group what happened to you during your Saturn return? Because the body, the human body, the physical form is where this conversation goes out of the air and into reality. Can you share with us?
I would love to. So yes, I definitely got a bite on the bottom from Saturn. So I was thinking I'd escaped the whole Saturn and Pluto conjunct my sun, because I had just focused on that and thinking, okay, I've really got to be careful in 2020, you know, when this happens. And this was, you know, it was intense. That was Pluto and Saturn going through my 8th house. So I thought I got away with it all. But as Saturn was just about to go back to my Saturn and over my Mercury, I kept thinking to myself, what would I do if I have to leave my body really soon? What's my legacy? What am I going to leave? And I realized then that I must bring through the fullness of all the trainings that I've ever done in all my lifetime to be able to articulate them to support all the people that I work with and whoever wants to do this shamanic ageless wisdom training. So I started to get this, you know, and I kept thinking, how would my wake be? Where would it be? Where would I was really in that thought. That was December solstice of 2020. I was having this thought. And then in January of 21, I got COVID quite badly, not so badly, but I was in the unknown. I didn't know how much it was going to affect me. All I did know is a woman of a very similar weight and similar heritage. She was Turkish. I'm Lebanese and Indian. Same age, exactly the same age. One of my clients. On the day I got COVID, she was taken into hospital with COVID and she died 6 days later. So that was the beginning of my moment of journeying into me with COVID, which to me is a very profound opportunity for people to really go into their lungs, which are like the wings that hold the heart center. You know, like I had this whole journey into this part of me very, very deeply. And then 3 months later, in March, right at the end of March, I noticed some puckering on my breast, my right breast, these breasts that have breastfed 4 children across 8 years. So I saw this little bit of puckering and I thought, that's weird. What is that? And then I I was actually giving a retreat at the time, and I was about to go to bed. And I that night, the next night, I meditated very deeply on my breast and thought, oh, I don't know, I don't like the feeling of this. And I really felt in, I found a 2-centimeter lump. And lo and behold, within 2 weeks, I was at the hospital checking it out, and I had breast cancer. So that was where Saturn, it was like, okay, I had ignored my body, worked my butt off in all my life with 4 kids, running retreats, traveling around the world. I've got a clothes business. I design clothes, and I'm an artist. I love to paint. So if I had any extra juice or energy, it would be filled with creativity. And I just really would love to, you know, I actually look at, I just want to show you this. I don't know if you can see it. I painted this actually during the
The front door of my house. Hello. You gave me, do you know that? You gave me a painting of yours. It's in the front door of my house when I was.
Oh, thank you. So I basically just, you know, I went to hospital and I said, look, can you just tell me, you know, I was having a biopsy, I was having a, you know, the mammogram said, you need to go now into having your ultrasound. It was very good. In England, we have a one-stop thing. So I saw the breast surgeon. He said, I don't think it's anything. But he said, let's go and do a mammogram to check. I had the mammogram. They said, I think it's something you need to go next door to have the ultrasound. The ultrasound, the woman said, I definitely see something. I think we have to do a biopsy right now. You know, and I had in the back of my mind, oh, you shouldn't do biopsies. But I was like, look, I've just got to do it. So, yeah, so I said to this woman, look, all I know is that I don't think I could do chemo. I need to know from you, how bad you think this is, because literally I've got 200 people signed up to do my ageless wisdom shamanic training, which is my dharma and the very reason I was born, to give this really powerful training that was all downloaded. In case you die, Rita, you need to bring this information through and speak it. So I was like, I don't, you know, she said, I think you need to postpone the launch of it, and you need to give yourself some space. She said that to me. Yeah, so then I waited for the result. I got told it was something called lobular cancer it hides itself. But the good news was it was contained. It wasn't in my lymph. I then had a mastectomy 4 weeks later. The immediate thing I did was to take responsibility and to accept, of course, I bloody got cancer. You know, why wouldn't I? Because I was totally disrespecting my body. I was in this constant outpouring. I didn't exercise, and I often ate late, and I often missed nights of sleep with the work that I do. So, you know, and sometimes it's really intense and stressful because I'm navigating children and family and a sick mother and holding a lot of people through very deep passages. So I really had to, I just embraced it and then immediately changed my lifestyle. I did absolutely everything good that you could think of and still do. So I am very disciplined. So I swim 5 times a week and exercise. I do lots of very healthy things. I still do my coffee enemas and juice and very good supplements.
So just so you all know, this was so profound. We went so high in the name of where we're aspiring and where the Aquarian age is taking us. And then back at the ranch comes the body. And it hits her at the feminine level where her mothering and the excessive amount of giving became the very source of her not being able to do what she came to do. Ding, 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 ding. And look at the change you made. So one of the questions I asked during this podcast is, if you could fill in this blank. I wish people would.
Okay, let me just tune in. I don't know if I would use the word wish. Okay, let me tune into this. So
I love how you're going.
My prayer for people is that they would take the time right now to get really still and to recognize that everything that they experience to be challenging, difficult, sorrowful, suffocating, conflicting, is the gift that they drew towards them that can become their spiritual practice. Because it is. Like everything was that, my whole journey of, which ended up 3 operations, they were like the gift, because I journeyed deeper into my breast and chest and heart center than ever before, and faced everything I teach even deeper than I could have ever wanted to, wished to, because I in my training, I give a whole thing about preparing for dying, preparing to leave this body. What is death? What really is it? Because, you know, in my lineage, there's a lot to say about it. When I was 11 years old, I knew that I had been Tibetan in previous lives, and I really wanted to meet Dharma teachers at that time. And from 4 years old, I could feel the Shakti Kundalini from the earth underneath my feet. So there's nothing more that I wish to be able to share wisdom on, recognizing that we're all on this journey. We're on a labyrinth, lifetime on lifetime.
Jupiter in Pisces trining Neptune in Scorpio. Your sensitivity is so exquisite that your youth could feel the vibration. So people are going to say, I'm not Rita, I'm not Debra. You're watching mastery. She's coming with recapitulation. She's coming with memory. That's what I always say. The single act of studying astrology is to cultivate your left brain so that you're able to actually refine that tool like a sword and be able to use the intellect. Why? To turn it off.
Yes, definitely. Definitely, because, you know, a lot of people, Debra, think that astrology is going to predict their future. And I always say to people, look, I can see what your tool set is and the cycles of opportunity with the transits, but ultimately your future is not written. This is a co-creation. There's higher alternatives and lower alternatives. But then there's the Bodhisattva vow. And to me, that's like the ultimate thing to deeply understand, because...
Describe that for people because they don't know what that is.
Okay, so the Bodhisattva vow is that from that place where you're whole and healed and already awake and never wasn't awake, consider this, that from that place you may have consciously asked to come here. So the Bodhisattva vow is ultimately that you renounce your enlightened state to continue to come back into this earth realm until every single being is enlightened, so that we can help others to wake up by actually absorbing the suffering of the bloodline you've been born into.
Okay, just
So
stop. I knew you were going to make me cry. Hold on. Can we just back up, Bus? Once more, listen to what she said, that your soul, the untarnished, the perfect part of you that's been around since the beginning of time and decided to incarnate, said, I will eat the karma. Give it to me. Let me take it on, because the Bodhisattva says, if I do it with the ultimate goal to do it for all of us, then we will return home again.
Yes, and we're not going to go and be in this bliss nirvana and stay there and leave everybody else to suffer. People think ascension is like, oh, I've become so good now, I don't need to be on earth. I disagree. I have cried and wept and prayed to be given the opportunity to come back until the end of time, when all of humanity has become like Shambhala, where they're living in such perfection of such generosity and such deep levels of fulfillment. Everybody is out of competition. They're just like wanting the best for every single human being and giving of the fruits of everything that they've ever been. Like, that's how I see it. Like, I am renouncing it. And sometimes when I do forget, I cry and I think, how did I end up having children with drug addict men? Where did I go so unconscious? And it hurts my heart. And then I think, I've passed all this addiction into my kids. Help me when the children are taking drugs and losing their way. How have I done this? And then I remember, oh yeah, of course. I came specifically because this pain, that suffering sits in my heart every single day, so that I can pray into it and I don't pretend it's not there. I'm here to help bring light to it, to do whatever it's going to take to light the children's fire for the next 7 generations, so that we can bring our children back to connect with their spirit and not scroll and scroll and scroll and numb themselves on PlayStations and smoke themselves stupid and take 2 lines of coke down the pub and drink loads of alcohol so they can't feel their spirit. I'm here to pray for that. And we all have it. Everybody has a different aspect of suffering they're lifting. Look at the people who have been violated as children, or this child that I wept about today.
You and I are so similar. It's such an 8th house conversation. May I always have the courage to walk to the dark and stand in front of it and know how to bring the light without flinching. May I always have the power to stand in the presence of the dark and know full well it's an illusion until the light arrives.
Yes. Yes.
And on that statement, we have both 8th house suns. And I want to say to those of you watching this, don't mistake the drama in your world as being small or incidental or boring, or it is exactly what you agreed to do, to eat the poison. This is the bodhisattva. Not everyone signed up to stay to the very end, except that once you realize that the promise here, I have to tell you, I had the weirdest dream last night. I don't think it's a surprise. I had a dream that I was being a bad kid, that I was, but it was funny in the dream that there was a rebelliousness, and I have this in my chart. There's a part of me that's a little irreverent. And I look at God and the goddess and all of it, and I say, excuse me, why did you make this so difficult? I have like a little teenager angst. Like, I'm like, Dad, that is so dumb. What are you doing? And then you know how when you get older, suddenly your parents look so much wiser and that wake up state occurs. But that teenage energy was in my dream last night. And I remember giggling, thinking how endearing it is. So let it be known that whatever level you're at in the quest for your surrender to your bodhisattva, to the highest realm, you may not be there. This may be a very inspired conversation. You feel separate, but I'm telling you something, all of us are on the same street, because there's only one here. We're all in this progression of evolution that's occurring in consciousness. We're just waking up. We never had cyberspace before. We never had dharma presented to us by a beautiful woman that lives in London, lives on Glastonbury. This is unheard of. I love when you describe the planes. I like to think about this because I was on one yesterday. 33,000 miles above the sky, moving at 500 miles an hour. And we get on those things and we completely trust.
Yeah.
Take our little suitcase, sit in that little chair, off it goes. No one has for some reason, someone on that thing should go, are we okay? Is this safe? But no, the collective agreement. And I want to give that to you right now. There's enough of us now, and this is Rita's gift to us, to reestablish that, yes, we're going through a difficult era, not to be mistaken with something is wrong.
Yeah. That's the point here. It's so magnificent. I mean, let's put it in another perspective. Think of this. It takes 26,000 years for the Earth to orbit and go all the way around to come to the galactic center, and we've arrived. And that on a chakra level, in terms of the gateways, the energy centers in your body, every human is being irradiated with the most enormous light on a cosmic level, on a electric fire level, and then on a physical level. On every level, we are being irradiated with light. All the mass corona ejections from the sun and all the auroras that have been happening.
Look at this. Look where I am. Look at the light that's going crazy.
I love that.
Okay, I have a question because we're almost done. One of my questions is, what can't you live without? Like, what are some of the things in this life that make you go, that you would not want to be without?
Well, for me, it's sunlight. I love being in the sun. Literally, I am a very solar person. So if I had to live in a grey place every single day, 365 days a year, that would be very difficult for me. I just like natural things. I need to be around water, and I love sunlight, and I enjoy seasons. I'm very grateful for, having times in England and rain and everything. So the things for me are, I love to live with a sacred fire. I love to be, I have got to say all that fourth house. I love to be around the children, even though I love my space away from them. Their laughter and their beauty, they are so close to God. And yeah, apart from that, I'm not too attached. A clean,
I think the other one, hello, is your Saturn on the midheaven, is your service.
Oh yeah, no, I know. If you said to me, Rita, you are not allowed to teach anymore, I would wither and die. Because that's what I thought the cancer was going to be. In fact, I have to go for a test on next week, and
you will be so
very, very healthy. I do. I got the lesson.
I already got it. Tell me, if there was someone that wasn't alive that you could sit with and communicate with and have a really heart-to-heart, who would it be?
Wasn't alive?
It could be either one.
Wow, that's an interesting one, because my dear, sweet, beloved father of my daughter died when she was 5 months old from a road traffic accident. I would really have loved to say to him, gosh, you hinted that you would have loved to have worked with plant medicines, because he kept saying he wanted to go to the jungle in Brazil, but he didn't even tell me that that was to drink ayahuasca. He would have been a very different person had he have done that. I would have loved to tell him, like, come on, let me take you there and let's do some very deep work together. He would have still been in his body. Yeah, that's a really good question. But do you mean, I feel very comfortable saying anything I feel in my heart to anyone I ever meet. There's nobody on this earth that I don't communicate my truth to from my heart.
We hadn't noticed, Rita. It's so funny. Mercury,
like some people might harbor a bit of a resentment to somebody or their parents or somebody. I don't have any of that.
I was asking, and there was a great answer. You don't need to go any further. It's just, my question was, if there was someone you could sit with and ask questions to. And that was a very powerful exchange that we felt. And I'm sure he's heard you. And I'm sure this is the other thing I think about sometimes, the simultaneous realities that we aren't comprehending, that we can't see. Like, I often talk about this. You meet someone, your child arrives in your house, you put them on your breast, you look down and you're madly in love. And then I had to think to myself, who else am I madly in love with that I haven't met yet? Like, how do those beings show up and you're completely lit up like a Christmas tree for the rest of your lifetime, those beings? So I'm answering the question I'm asking you. If I could meet a host of beings in a room, all of whom I have soul contracts with that operate with no karma, I'd love to sit with them and hear the conversation.
That's beautiful. I love that. I really love that. It's a really beautiful question.
I mean, from the future, you know this, yes? You're a time traveler.
Yeah.
Saturn in Aquarius, Mercury in Aquarius. Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, I was going to say to you that in terms of time travel, I really see that in the next 200 years, as things clear on this earth, and more and more people become soul infused, light bodies activated, there's going to be a new transport system that's very different to what we understand now, where we work with the ley lines, our nadi system, our chakra system. We work with solar light frequency to move. And people live to 200 years and don't even have children until they're 80 years old, because they'll be in right relationship and they'll be conscious and they'll commit to being with that child, to really hold an auric egg around that child. That's how I see it. going forward as we become more awake and conscious. Our choices will be so different of how we bring people into the world. I was really unconscious. I got caught in the wave of the sexual revolution that thought it's cool to, you know, like I can manage on my own. Actually, children need mothers and fathers to thrive, and awakened ones that can really see the high being that's there.
What it'd be like to be. So your help, that was my last question before we finish, is my podcast has been all about the environment, and I've had some really significant scientists warn us that we are bumping into the melting of the ice and the death of the coral and the increase of the plastic and the heating of the temperature. Not a surprise. Once again, everything goes in cycles. It's actually natural. We've had 13 ice ages before. Why would we be surprised? At the same time, there's to your point, a churning and a discomfort because we don't have enough understanding of the transition, which you're really celebrating. And my question to you is, what do you suggest? What's if you had some advice for people in this transition to deal with the churn? You say?
Thank you, because that brings me into probably the most important thing I could say today, which is how it's going to be in the golden age is that we have to heal our etheric field and become aware that we have a light body. Our light body is different to our physical body. It's encoded with the blueprint of our divine blueprint, because, you know, a light age means that we are not operating from density. So it sounds very far-fetched, but a lot of the prophecies are talking about this golden, translucent, purified state, because the quicker we purify ourselves, the quicker and stop like in that taking energy of consumption, take, look for something to gratify and taking. It's an absorbing of light energy. We then in this inner fulfillment, we start giving back, and the technology is encoded within our young children of how to bring the balance on this planet. There's going to be the tipping point to bring balance and new openings to see how we can restore the balance on planet Earth. And I would love to finish with a prayer on that subject, that exactly a prayer to do with that.
Thank you. Yes.
Can I?
Yes, please.
Okay, then. Thank you. Yeah. From the point of light within the mind of existence, light streams forth into the minds of all mankind. Light illuminates this earth. From the point of love within the heart of existence, love streams forth into the hearts of all. I am you, you am I, and we are one. From the center known as humanity, purpose and intent aligns in loving service to the one and all. From the center known as humanity, the plan of love and light is now made fully manifest. Love and light and wisdom now restores the balance on planet Earth, and so it is.
And so it is.
May the light of spirit shine upon us, upon all beings in all planes and all dimensions, now and forevermore, for the ultimate good of all. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti Om.
I'm just going to cry. Thank you so much, Rita, for your presence on earth, for your willingness to share with us so constantly, and for the willingness to know and meet each other and recognize each other so that our love got kindled 30 years ago.
Yes. Thank you for your work, darling. And I deeply appreciate this, to just bring the deep reassurance that this is a beautiful time to be alive and the future's bright. It might feel scary because it's changing. The old paradigm structures are breaking away and the new is not fully conceived, but it is within cosmic divine order. and ceremonial white magic. We just have to listen to the instruction from that inner Christ light, that pure consciousness that is here silently in the silence, sharing with us exactly what to do, that omnipresence that's around us, giving us instruction of where we need to be at this time and how to really open ourselves to our full potential. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening. We want to keep this conversation going with you, so please subscribe to our podcast and leave a rating and review to make sure you never miss an episode. Remember, climate activist by day, human by night. Send Debra a DM on Instagram at Debra Silverman Astrology and visit DebraSilvermanAstrology.com. And we're going to leave you like we leave every single episode. Make it your mission to change the world.